Hey there, welcome to Ask Dial number 39. Hope you're doing really well. In this episode, we are gonna go over a bunch of comments. Actually, interestingly, no emails today, 4 comments and some messages from Jay as well. And actually, I really want to start with this really encouraging words and encouraging little story, if you will, from Leah. Let me find it. Here it is. So for those of you who don't know Leah, she's been contributing a lot to the channel, particularly in the, when it comes to those that are concerned that they have SFI and FFI, and she has done a lot of reading on that topic, and she's been super helpful. I think her story is briefly here that she has that worry about having this neurological condition, and realized that was not the case, but she still had trouble sleeping, and she's been working on that. So let's read this comment. This is a comment on Ask Daniel number 38 from Leah from 3 days ago. Dear Daniel, new update from me. Since I've learned not to force myself to fall asleep, I'm able to fall asleep as easy as I never could in my whole life since I was a child. Check that out. Let's read it again. I am able to fall asleep as easy as I never could in my whole life since I was a child. I always try to force myself by closing my eyes and telling myself, you're gonna sleep now. It never worked out. I accepted it. Thought it was just, I thought I just wasn't good in sleeping. Now I just don't close my eyes. I do the opposite. I try to keep them open and watch a movie or something like that. It is exactly this behavior that I need in my whole life without realizing it. Every morning I wake up without even knowing or remembering how and when I fell asleep. That is exactly how it should be. How it should be for every one of us, ! I don't ever want to go back to my old sleep behavior because I now realize how much energy it took every night to forcefully fall asleep. Thank you so much for spreading awareness to this important and yet underrated problem, Sonia. I pray to God that I won't fall back in my old behavior ever again. So Leah, I already replied in a comment, but I thought this was super important, something I really wanted to bring up here. And here we have it again. It is always the same thing, worded differently, meaning the more you try to sleep, the less you get. The more you try to force yourself to sleep, the more tension that produces, the more pressure. And guess what? Sleep can only happen when we're not trying to sleep. Sleep is a passive process. So in Leah's word here, she was kind of trying to force herself to sleep. She was battling sleep, trying. That led her to become like really tired, fatigued, etc. When she's doing the opposite. By the way, this is called paradoxical intention. When you're actually trying to stay awake, or not doing anything to sleep, just like trying to stay awake, sleep comes your way. Now it is a passive process. You're not trying to sleep. And so this is super helpful. I encourage everyone to read this on your own. Ask Dial number 38. It's from her name is Leah, but she goes by Vegan ASMR as well. And I just want to point out what I said in my comment here. I pray to God that I won't fall back in my old behavior ever again. I actually didn't pick up on this the first time I read this comment, but it is, Leah is saying, I pray that I won't fall back in my old behavior, saying, actually, it was my own behavior, my thought patterns, etc., that led me here, which is great. That is ownership. That makes you feel in control when you say, I hope that I don't start thinking like that again. I hope that I don't start behaving like that again. That is ownership. That is really, really helpful. And then it almost goes without saying that you have control, as long as you, keep these insights in mind and don't fall for that temptation to start to like trying to produce sleep, etc. You're going to do amazingly well, Leah. Thanks so much for sharing this. So with that said, I will jump into a comment from Jay. Jay has also been contributing a lot to the channel, and I think there were kind of 2 questions from Jay here, and let's see. I think I'm going to start reading here. Hello, Daniel. I thought I just share. I really hope I can get that sleep apnea machine soon. I know I was for sure diagnosed I always wake up same time every night between 2 and 3, sometimes 4, but it's always when I'm dreaming. This REM sleep apnea is starting to get to me. I notice my memory's kind of off from lack of REM sleep. So the story briefly, actually, Jay also found my channel here because he was worried, I think, about sporadic fatal insomnia. And then, with time, realized that was not what's happening. He saw a sleep doctor, etc. Was diagnosed with sleep apnea, waited to get a CPAP machine. And the one thing I want to say here was that, if you have sleep apnea, if that's what's waking up and you start a CPAP machine, that can be amazing. That can really, really help you. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not the sleep apnea. Sometimes it is more insomnia. Sometimes it is hyperarousal preoccupation that wakes you up. So if for anyone out there, really, if you have both, like you have trouble sleeping and let's say you have insomnia, right? You're diagnosed with sleep apnea and the CPAP doesn't help, then I think the best thing to do is to do kind of all the things I talk about here, like, reducing efforts at trying to sleep, spending less time in bed, changing, understanding insomnia, etc. But actually, what I wanted to really point out here was the last part here. Like, it's very common that people tell me in clinic, like, I'm just not getting enough REM sleep, and that always makes me curious. Like, how do you know that? And what most people mean, actually, when they say that is, I'm not getting that nice, refreshing, solid sleep. And I notice that because I don't wake up refreshed. And it's good to know that REM sleep is actually not considered to be that deep, refreshing one. That is like the first, that is the sleep that happens in the early part of the night, the deep sleep or stage 3 sleep. REM sleep is your brain's very active, etc. But I'm just sharing that for the kind of general information's sake. That was not the point I want to make. The point I want to make was more this one. And I'm going to use this model a little bit here. Let me sure it's visible for everyone. It's not actually. So let's pull it in here like that. So for you, anyone not familiar with it, I'm starting to use this more and more. I think it's super helpful. Circumstances is things we can't control, the past, other people's behavior, things like that. We can't control those, but they can produce thoughts. Thoughts lead us to feel things. Our emotions produce actions, and that leads us to results. So a thought here is like REM sleep. If I don't get enough REM sleep, I feel really tired. And that thought is not really something that leads you to feel like kind of happy, positive, encouraged. It's more that something that kind of produces anxiety, because baked in this thought is like, I can't control my REM sleep. I just got to get more REM sleep so I feel better. That thought, when you're hoping for something you can't control, etc., that makes you feel more anxious, and that produces and maybe the action of like trying to sleep, or actually a reaction. This can also be a reaction, and the reaction could be like palpitations and like other anxiety things, and that could result in you sleeping less, and that reinforces your thought like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting enough REM sleep. And the thing here is, like, if you're not sleeping well, is it because you're not getting enough REM sleep? There is no way to really prove that. That's a big unknown. So in that case, it's better to work towards having a thought that is more helpful to you, and a thought such as a neutral thought, such as, actually, I don't know that REM sleep is that important for how I feel. Even that thought makes you feel more relieved, and you have less of that kind of stress reaction, and you sleep better. So a neutral thought is that good. Or even a thought like, it's unknown what REM sleep does, or like, actually, I don't necessarily think it's that important for me to get REM sleep. That thought is a more helpful one. So whenever we have any thought that emphasizes the importance of sleep in general, or a certain sleep stage, like, I have to get enough REM sleep, I really need my deep sleep, I have to get more sleep, all those thoughts are not helpful. The thoughts that de-emphasize the importance of a certain sleep stage, or sleep in general, actually, are the ones that lead to better results and better sleep. So I want to point that one out, Jay. I hope you get that CPAP machine and you sleep like a baby, of course, but I think this is still important for everyone to hear. And then I thought there was another question here from Jay. here. I also like to include my cousin. He takes sleeping pills every night. He told me because I have REM sleep apnea, I should not be taking sleeping pills because there could be a chance I won't wake up when my breathing stops. I'd like to know your thoughts on that. Okay, all right. So it's a common concern people have, that if you take something that's kind of sedating and you have sleep apnea, then potentially you may just like have this episode where your tongue falls back and you can't breathe and you choke, you harm your body or die potentially because you didn't wake up. That there's no evidence for that. And again, nothing here is a medical advice to anyone. Nothing I say today is medical advice to anyone. If you're concerned about your health, talk to your doctor. But my general thoughts on this is, like if you're taking your medications as prescribed, there's no evidence that you would not wake up when you're choking. I mean, your body has very, very strong defense mechanisms. So if your tongue falls back and you literally can't breathe, you're gonna wake up. It's maybe a different thing if you're like completely like intoxicated and inebriated and you vomit and you have inhale the vomit. So that could be super dangerous, but that's not what we're talking about here. So so Jay, hope this helps. Stay in touch and let us know how things go. And with that said, let us move over to some more comments. We're actually going to go back 3 days ago or so. Yeah, here it is. We have Shawn, who used his mom's computer while writing comments. So I thought it was Suzanne, but it was actually Shawn. So anyway, let's read this. This is a comment on Insomnia Insight number 310. Daniel, hello. My name is Shawn. I came across your YouTube channel while looking for answers about my sleep issue. I'm pretty worried. I know you probably get a lot of people thinking they may have a type of fatal insomnia. That's exactly where I'm at. However, I can't explain it away, and it seems every couple nights is getting worse. For the past few months, I have been telling my girlfriend I don't feel like I'm getting into deep sleep, almost staying in a dreamlike state throughout the night, but not giving it too much thought or worry. Then about a week or two ago, insomnia grew more and more. One night, a week or so ago, I didn't sleep at all over the night and decided to stay up so that I would feel sleepy the next night. After being up that long, I would usually sleep a solid 10 or more hours straight, no problem. I went to sleep that next night only to wake up 2 hours later, remembering every bit of a dream I had vividly. It took a little bit to fall back asleep, and I woke up 2 hours later, remembering every bit of that dream as well. So only dreaming as I was going to sleep for 2 hours at a time. This has went on for over a week. Sleep almost exactly 2 hours, wake up remembering full dreams, go back to sleep for 2 hours until I just get up for the day. Last night I slept for about 3 to 4 hours, once again dreaming and remembering vividly. After this last time of waking, I've tried to go back to sleep, and when I get to the point where I can feel I'm falling asleep, I jerk out of it and haven't been able to go back to sleep. Just gave up. Also, the past 3 or 4 days, I have very loud tinnitus, getting pretty worried about the same time, telling myself it's all in my head. Any advice or opinion would be great. So I replied, I think, briefly in a comment, but there is a lot to talk about here that I think could be helpful for you, Shawn, of course, and anyone else that's tuning in. And the story here, like my first impression of this story is kind of a classic story of your threat monitor. That kind of safety mechanism in your brain, that part of your brain that's there to keep you safe. It's a story of that. Let's call it the amygdala. It's a story of the amygdala getting a sense that something is out there to get you, to hurt you, to harm you, and it becoming more and more getting into fight or flight mode. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this again. So it was like, I'm pretty worried for the past few months. I'm sleeping that deep. So at that point in time, for several months, there was a little bit of a concern there. The threat monitoring system had something on its radar. It's like something is a little off here. And it's kind of starting to look at lack of sleep as a potential threat, but it's not quite there yet. It's just kind of looming, in the shadows, And then we have this week or two ago, it grew more and more. One night, a week or so, I didn't sleep at all. Now, what's happened is that your brain has been keeping track of sleeplessness, and now it's somehow identifying it's like, it's a bigger threat. Something's really going on there, and then you sleep even less, right? So it's the cycle of your brain thinks lack of sleep is a threat, and that leads you to sleep less, and then it appears like a bigger threat, and on the cycle goes. And finally, you end up in this state where you have this like super superficial sleep, very superficial sleep. You fall asleep, but you're very close to wakefulness, which leads to this vivid dream situation. If you have a deeper sleep and you're just not that hyper alert, you're not that aware of what's going on, you may still have a lot of dreams, but you just don't remember them. Even if you wake up and you remember a dream for a second, it won't stay in your memory. So again, we have like insomnia in itself, sleeping a little, waking up a lot of times, vivid dreams, all those classic signs of hyperarousal. And hyperarousal just means like your emotional state is in a heightened state. And then you have the hypnic jerks. Hypnic jerks, classic hyperarousal. You notice this normal phenomenon. When we fall asleep, we often have a jerk. Normal, but when we're hyper aware, they seem really strong. We have more of them. And tinnitus, I've come across that a couple times actually, as like people with like health anxiety, like we very often have tinnitus. And I think it goes back to that hyperarousal. When we're hyper aroused, we just notice everything. This tiny sound in your ear that you normally wouldn't notice, it seems really loud. That twitch, that ache, that pressure, it just like emphasized. So my kind of like, again, this sounds like a story of kind of like increasing hyper arousal. So then of course the question becomes, all right, so what should I do? What should I do about all this? And this actually goes, if you look at the model for a second here, it's all about thoughts. It may not seem like that. You just really noticing the emotions here. You notice how you're kind of tense. You may be worried. You're like frustrated, like heightened arousal. Like you notice the emotions a lot, but you may not think so much about the thoughts behind emotions. There's always the thought, and the thought here could be like something's off with my sleep, or like something's off with my health, or something like that. So what really helps is always to work on the thoughts and go from problem thoughts, such as like something's really wrong with my sleep system, to a neutral thought like, oh, this could all be, there may not be anything wrong with my sleep system, to like, oh, my sleep system is fine. That's kind of going from a problematic thought to a goal thought. And when you think something, when you have reached a goal thought, like nothing's wrong with my sleep system, you feel better. You do less things to produce sleep. You ruminate and read up less, and you sleep better, etc. So how can you change thoughts? Well, I think that the most practical and easiest way to change thought is just education, which is exactly what we're doing here. Knowing that there's nothing unusual with this story. It's a very common story. Hypnic jerks are not uncommon at all. Vivid dreams are not uncommon. Nothing of this is strange. All of that can demystify. You can go from thinking, oh my gosh, something really weird and unique is happening to me, to, actually, this is not that unusual. And if you have that thought, this is not that unusual, relief, less unhelpful actions, better sleep, etc. So education is really helpful. And I think honestly, that's the big one. Like just learning on this channel, you can learn a lot, and once you like, I really think that once you get to a point where you're like, you feel less worried, you think in terms of like, okay, this is not that unusual, not that strange, then you can start the big one, which is like shifting attention in a different direction, being like, okay, I think now I'm ready to like do something I enjoy instead, like pick up on activities that I have not done so much lately, or like just go towards the light and do things you enjoy. And that's kind of the 2-punch thing, like first education and then shifting attention is like the really good thing. So Shawn, I hope this helped, and please stay in touch, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Okay, cool. That was Shawn's comment, and then let's see how we are on time here. And Logan is here. So let's read this live comment here. And Logan, by the way, was a guest on the podcast. Goes by Raka here, and that was Talking Insomnia. Maybe I can't remember the number, but Talking Insomnia pretty recently. Hey Daniel, just want to say I've since gotten off sleeping pills and focused on consistent sleep schedule. I went from 2 to 4 hours at one time to 4 to 5.5. I still feel drunk and yawn all day. Hopefully it continues to get better. Logan, I'm super thanks for staying in touch, and I'm really encouraged. When it comes to insomnia, trouble sleeping, you have to really hold on to any little positive, because it can feel so daunting. So when you do that, when you have positives, that's amazing in itself. When you talk about them, mention them, that kind of boosts, that gives you that tailwind to move forward. Coming off medications, that's not easy. That's amazing. And sleeping longer is great too. Now, it is not uncommon at all to feel like really tired when your insomnia actually gets better. And that's kind of perfect segue here. That goes back to that hyperarousal we just talked about. When you're in this hyperaroused, hyperexcited state, you don't notice how tired you are. It's kind of like being in this boxing match. And you're like, am I tired? If somebody asks you while you're boxing if you're tired, you're probably like, no, just keep going. And then you're like, stop. And you're like, oh, now I feel it. Whoa, I'm really tired. Kind of same with insomnia. When you're doing these things, like you're trying less to produce sleep, you're spending less time in bed, you're not fighting sleep anymore, you can notice how tired you are. So that's not uncommon. So I'm super encouraged, Logan, and I think I haven't done this analogy in a long time. So let's talk about it for a second here. I think this is a really helpful one that I picked up from Sasha Stevens. It's basically, if you imagine getting towards a place where you sleep well as like hiking, and that's your goal, sleeping well, and you kind of like started this journey, right? And then you stumble on a root or a rock, and you then go like, oh, why did I stumble here? You measure the route, you check the rock out, you think about, how can I avoid this? I don't want this to happen again, right? Guess what? You get stuck there. The thing to do is always, okay, I had another night where I slept very little. Well, guess what? I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to keep hiking. Then you will reach your destination. So Logan, stay in touch. Thanks a million times for like sharing this. Super thankful. And then, I was going to check how we were on time here, and 23 minutes. Let's move on to another comment here from. Oh yeah. This one from Alina. So, and this is actually about this model. And Alina, by the way, she sent me an email a couple of weeks ago where she talked about how she did the complete opposite of what she kind of like, her brain was kind of like trying to make her do. Like, if you notice that she slept better one night, and her brain was like, that's because you didn't have coffee yesterday. Then she was like, I'm going to drink some coffee. And when you hear me say that the first time, you might say like, that sounds crazy. But that is so brave, and actually that's exactly the way to go, because that's training your brain that there is no there's no mystery there. It's not, you can't produce sleep. Sleep is happens passively. So when the brain is trying to tell you like, this is making you sleep, then you kind of counter that by not doing that and proving to your brain that had nothing to do with it. So anyway, just when I got that email from Alina, I was like, wow, this is so insightful. But anyway, now let's read this one. This is a comment on Insomnia Insight number 310. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for sharing this. Totally agree with this model. I've been thinking on the thoughts element, and I actually saw there are two kinds: automatic thoughts or scary thoughts, the ones we can't control. They're like emotions. They just appear with no effort. It's like, I won't be able to sleep again, or this should not be happening. Something's wrong with me. 2, The second type is the correct rational thought, the ones that I needed to consciously plant in my brain, like it's okay not to feel sleepy in the evening. Eventually the body will take over and I will fall asleep. Just don't force it now. I realized that I cannot control the automatic thoughts. When I tried not to think them, it only made things worse. So I ditched the idea of consciously changing them. On the other hand, I was in total control of choosing the rational thoughts. So I started doing mind work to pick the thoughts that were calming me. Such two-sided thought work actually made my automatic thoughts fade away. Do you think that thinking the rational thoughts alongside having and accepting the automatic thoughts could be a potential negative thought neutralizer? And the short answer is I think I'm 100% there. I when I read the first time, I thought like maybe there was something I maybe thought about differently, but actually I think this is completely right. So, automatic thoughts, like Alina says here, are things that there's no obvious source of them. Like, you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to sleep again. Well, in that case, like the circumstances produced it, but it's still an automatic thought. It's not like you decided to pick up a book and read a chapter and then, oh, you read this, therefore you think this, right? That's not automatic, but this one came out of nowhere. And you can't control like what thoughts your mind produces. Those automatic thoughts cannot be controlled, just like Alina says. But when you actually become aware of them, instead of waking up and just be like, you're waking up and like, oh my God, I feel so anxious. You realize that there was a thought behind it. And then that thought, for example, was, oh my gosh, I'm not going to fall asleep again. Just being aware of that and knowing that there's a thought there really helps. It kind of demystifies the situation. So even if you can't change automatic thoughts, just knowing that they're super helpful. And then exactly when you're doing the mind work, Alina calls it mind work, I call it thought work, which is like doing a thought download, writing down your thoughts and like thinking, oh, this is a problem thought, this is a goal thought, I should have more of these thoughts, I should work my way towards these thoughts. When you do those thought works, you overall become like less anxious, and then your brain produces less of these unhelpful automatic thoughts. So I think, again, this is another one of those comments where I think everyone should just read this. Insomnia Insight number 310 from Alina. Super, super insightful comment. And I definitely think that doing this kind of mind work, choosing rational thoughts that are helpful, does neutralize the kind of negative automatic thoughts. 100%. Absolutely. I think this is really, really important. Thanks so much, Alina. Thank you. All right, and then, and then we just have one more comment here. Maybe we'll go into one other one, but definitely said I would comment on this one tonight. And this is from Richard Corns, and this is a comment on Insomnia Insight number 179. And Richard writes the following: Hello, I've been practicing CBTi, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, for 8 weeks. This is the final week, but things just nosedived this week. Before I started CBTi, I was getting 2 to 3 hours of fragmented light sleep while taking Zopiclo. Stopped taking the meds first day of week 1. By week 4 to 7, I was getting a solid 5 hours of deep, restful sleep most nights. My final week, with today being my final sleep diary, my sleep took a massive nosedive over the week. Last night was the first night in 8 weeks I took sleeping meds again, as I felt so awful from lack of sleep. Over the last few days and last night I felt impossible again. Help, what's happened? Sleep window started at 11:30 p.m. to 5 a.m. and stretched out to 5:30 during the course as sleep was improving. So what happened? I was almost sure I had replied to this, but I can't see it here. So sorry about that, Richard. But anyway, I'll put in a reply there so Richard gets notified of this. But I thought this was really important to talk about. So this is common. I've often had people on the channel here or who said this exact thing happened to them, or my own clients that had like towards the end of a course being really like anxious about like the end of the course and then having kind of like more trouble sleeping again. So that's always good to demystify. It is super, super common. And I think there's no mystery here in the sense that you're in a course, you're doing better, but then as it's kind of the last week, these thoughts pop up like, what if the insomnia comes back? What if I don't sleep again? What if I can't do it on my own, et cetera, et cetera? And that those thoughts produce more anxiety, and that produces the kind of the action of thinking, the action of like really coming up with these situations like, oh, I'm going to be, everything was for nothing. I haven't learned anything, and that produces like less sleep, and then it kind of reinforces the whole thing. So the point here is very common. And when it's demystified, I think that always helps. It's super common that people have this nosedive in the last week of a course. But I of course don't know the contents of this course, but I think the most important thing here is to know that insomnia does not have a life of its own. I think the most important thing is to realize that we talked earlier in this episode about the threat monitoring, that part of our brain. Insomnia is caused by our brain identifying the lack of sleep as like a threat and making us do things to kind of escape that threat, like taking medications or sleeping in when we can, or like trying those supplements or the sleep mask or the melatonin or something, trying to produce sleep. And the more we try, the less we get, right? But the point here is it when somebody has like a relapse or like it's insomnia is back, that just means that your thoughts have reverted to the thoughts of like sleep as a threat, and which means that if you just change your thoughts, work on your thoughts, you will sleep well again. And another important thing here, the headline here should be, I slept great for a couple of weeks. You stopped medications and slept good for several weeks, getting 5 hours of deep, solid, restful sleep. That is proof you can sleep without medications. There's nothing wrong with you, and you will get back there as long as as long as you don't get into that mode again of like, trying to sleep, like pondering, searching, ruminating, like trying to make yourself sleep. Now, when it comes to the medication, I think I think it's always important to be like self-love, self-compassion is super important. Like you took those medications because you thought that you had to. It came from a good place, a place of self-care. Now, the problem, of course, is that it can seem like, because you took the medications and then maybe you slept some more, it can seem like proof that you can't sleep without it, but it really isn't. You slept really well without it. So I think the best, when sleep is paradoxically like the worse things are, like the less sleep you're getting, the more panicky you feel, the more important it is not to react, because when you are in this kind of like panicky state, like anything you do just becomes something that really emphasizes that you're having trouble sleeping, and it kind of reinforces that thought. And so the more trouble you have sleeping, the more you have to try to not do anything. And for someone that's never taken any course, I always say like, when you pass this kind of panic, then you can start working like you've done, like learning about sleep, you spend less time in bed, doing the sleep window thing, etc. In your case, it's just about like getting past this kind of panicky, sleepless state and go back to more normal. And then you can apply all the knowledge and all the skills and all the things you learned, which basically is just spend less time in bed and try to not, go into that place of trying to produce sleep, etc. So I felt I was rambling a little bit here, Richard, but I hope this helped, and just stay in touch. And one thing I want to add is that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, was all the work I did for nothing? No, it wasn't, because you've learned things during this course that you'll know forever, for the rest of your life. And particularly, guess what? If you get past this now, if you like a week from now, you're like, okay, I took sleeping medications for 2 nights, but now I'm not taking them anymore, and I've started getting back towards better sleep. And then, a week later, you're like, I'm sleeping pretty good now. Then you're in a better spot than ever, because then you've proven to yourself that you can get to a point of sleeping well without doing anything. And then you've really shown your brain, you've really shown your amygdala that it does not have to be scared of sleeplessness, which is, so, these setbacks, they can be really big leaps towards like building sleep confidence and sleeping well forever. So Richard, yeah, stay in touch there, and any questions, just let me know. All right, so Logan commented back here and said, that's exactly how it is. Thank you. Have you browsed the insomnia Reddit recently? Seems a lot of people currently have similar issues to mine. Guessing the COVID situation has thrown people's sleep schedules and daily schedules in disarray. That and an unfortunate rise in people worried about familial insomnia. I have not. A couple of months, it was probably more than a year ago, I was a little bit active on Reddit. I haven't been lately, but I think definitely there are a couple of things going on. Number one is general anxiety. Like when we're anxious, we sleep less, and then we may pay attention to the fact that we sleep less, and then we have like insomnia things going on, right? That's and with COVID, proves a lot of anxiety, proves a lot of insomnia for sure. Number two, a lot of people are sheltering. A lot of people are inside, and the more you have, like the more time you spend inside, the more time you may spend in bed, the more passive you may become. And the more time you spend in bed, the less you sleep. That's another one. And also we may have more time to look things up, etc. So I'm not surprised at all that we have this situation for sure. Definitely tell people about my channel on Reddit. I think there's a lot of people already can learn. So we're in time, 36 minutes. Let's do this. Let's do one last thing, and this is from just a brief thing, but I think it was really can be really helpful. This one, and this is a comment from Tiny Tia on Ask Daniel number 38, where she said the following. I have insomnia starting in October last year. I believe it started by me taking a stomach stimulator. I was taking it off and on for 2 years. I stopped taking it and noticed that my sleep started to reduce every night until I couldn't sleep. And I've been on many sleeping pills and nothing helps. I want to know, and actually let's just stop there. And I want to say the following. This is such a classic example of how anything can throw your sleep off, but only really your thoughts, beliefs, behavior, etc. can sustain insomnia. And I think this is an example of that. Like a stomach stimulator it could very well have the side effect of making you sleep less one night or 2 nights or something like that. But and another good point here is that Tiny stopped taking it and is now still not sleeping better. And if that happens to you or anyone you know, if you think something caused your insomnia and then you stop taking it and you still have trouble sleeping, that is also evidence that it wasn't that thing. But it's so common that you think about like, what was that caused it? It was that thing, and that the initial thing that caused your sleeplessness is nothing to do with the now. So the point I want to try to make here is that the past, which in small by the way is called circumstances, actually is not at all important when it comes to the results, which is, you want to sleep well. Circumstances, like I took this stomach stimulator a couple of years ago, actually has nothing to do with the results. It's just the thought that stomach stimulator probably has something to do with it. I damaged my brain taking it. It's a problem. That thought produces like anxiety, which then produces less sleep and reinforces the thought. So the point here is just that anything can trigger initial sleeplessness, but whenever something goes on for like weeks, months, years, it is your thoughts and behaviors that reinforce it. And I'm just going to end with, I had a conversation the other day with someone that wanted me to talk to their Facebook group actually about pain. And I said, it's so interesting how pain is similar to insomnia in a sense that we have this. I've stopped saying chronic because I think that word is not helpful at all. It implies that something will never change, which is so untrue when it comes to insomnia. But just for sake of the example here, I talked to him about like how in the pain world, you have like acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain, you hit your hand with a hammer, right? It feels really painful. That's normal, right? Of course, we want to have that pain. That keeps us safe. But if you have pain from that same, finger now for like 8 months, it is probably been sustained by your reaction. Like you're trying to avoid that pain. You don't want to have that pain. That pain actually becomes a bigger problem. Same thing with insomnia. Sleeplessness is normal when we're facing stress. We're supposed to sleep less. Acute insomnia is normal, but when it goes on and on, it is our thoughts, beliefs, etc. that sustain it. So little corollary to pain there. Okay, so Raka, I did quite a bit smiley. Well, I hear you. And Brian, thanks, Brian, always so supportive. I really appreciate that. And Zoltan is asking how it's going. It's going really well. Everything's going well. And actually, speaking of that, I'm what time is it now? It is 8:49. In 10 minutes, I'm going to talk to Hang, which is the technical guide working on my app, which I think is going to be out tomorrow. It's going to be soft launch. So I'm really excited about that. I think that can really help a lot of people. So I'll keep you in the loop, of course. So that said, thanks so much, everyone. It's always really cool to have these live questions. Logan, Brian, Zoltan, thank you. Thanks for everyone tuning in. And I will be back here tomorrow. Until then, take it easy.